Okay, now we are on to our solvency ratios. The solvency ratios really look at the company overall. So where liquidity just looked at your current situation, basically, what do you have to pay in the next year and do you have enough money to pay it? Solvency looks at the company overall and looks at how much debt the company has versus how much equity. If you remember assets equal liabilities plus equity, then you know whatever debt we have takes away from equity and leaves less left over for the shareholders. So that's what we're going to look at. Okay, so here we are, and I'm going to just scroll down so we see our solvency ratios. And there's three of them: the debt ratio, the equity ratio, and the debt to equity ratio. We'll start with the debt ratio, and that tells us how much of our total assets have been committed already to pay off debt. So we're going to start with total liabilities. So I'm going to go over to my balance sheet because that's where my liabilities are. And I'm going to add my current liabilities, which are total current liabilities, 18,630 plus my non-current liabilities. Now, if you are lucky, and that's 67,716. Your company will have added them for you, but if not, you just do what I just did. Take your current liabilities, add your non-current liabilities, and that is our total liabilities of 86,346. We also need our current assets. So back to our balance sheet. And our total assets are down here. Make sure you don't just grab current assets. You need total assets, current and non-current. For us, that's 108,709. And then we just take our total liabilities, divide by our total assets, and that gives us our debt ratio. So I'm going to put that as a percentage. Add a couple. So it tells us that our 79% of our assets are going to be used to pay liabilities. So if you're good at math, you know that means about 21% is left over as equity. But let's go ahead and do the calculation to make sure. So for our equity ratio, we start with total equity. So back to the balance sheet. And our total equity, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. You can see here, row 37 is 22,363. Total assets, we're up here, the 108,709. So I'm going to take my total equity, divide by total assets, and I'm going to make that a percentage, and I get 21.57%, or almost 21%. So that tells me that of all of my assets that I have, 79% are pledged away to pay off liabilities, and 20% is left over for the shareholders. Is that good or bad? It kind of depends. 20% may not seem like a lot of the assets for our shareholders, but we're talking 20% of $108 billion. Maybe that is good. And again, look at competitors, look at past years, and it'll give you an idea of how the trends are going. Finally, we're going to do our debt to equity ratio. So our total liabilities were 86,346. Our total equity, 22,363. And when I take my liabilities and divide them by my equity, I end up with 3.86. I'm just going to make this a number. 3.86. That means I have 3.86 times as much liability as I do equity, or almost 4% as much liabilities as I do equity. Again, this seems like a lot of liability, but there may be a good reason for it, and I may talk about that in another video. Okay, so that gives us our three solvency ratios: debt ratio, equity ratio, and debt to equity ratio. So we will end this here, and in the next video, we will talk about our profitability ratios.